enjoy God on the mountaintops, we get to know him in the valley. Right? That's what we said in 2019 before COVID. And here after COVID, it's the same exact principle. I'm sure you've had some mountains and you've had some valleys in the past couple of years. But God is still God and God is still good. There's this great psalm, Psalm 84:5. It says this: "What joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord, who have set their minds on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. When they walk through the valley of weeping, it will become a place of refreshing springs." He says, what joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord. How do we get to know God? And I know if you're watching this, maybe you don't know Jesus, you don't follow Jesus. That's fine. I'm so glad you're here. But the crazy thing about it is if you don't know Jesus, when you get to the end of your strength, you have nowhere else to go. When you say, I'm overwhelmed and I'm exhausted and I'm done and I've done everything I can, then you're just done. And that's a scary way to live life. And that's not the life God designed for us. It was when you get to the end of yourself, when you follow Jesus, there's still Jesus. And he provides the strength that we need. As Christ followers, we believe that we have access to a strength that goes beyond ourselves. And we can access that strength even when we feel cut off. The psalm says, what joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord. Anyone who's ever walked with God for any length of time can vouch for this, that when they came to the end of themselves, God picked them up. And again, the testimonies are so important. But if that's you today, can I just encourage you to keep finding your strength in Jesus? If you feel abandoned, to go to him, to ask him for strength daily, to rely on him today to get through today, and then to get through tomorrow, and then the next day, because God can provide for it. And while we may enjoy God on the mountaintops, we really get to know him intimately in the valley, right? We know this. Our best experiences, or I should say our best friends, were often forged in a valley situation. Those are the people who we know we can count on because they've seen the worst about our lives, they've experienced the worst with us, and they stayed. We believe that when we get to the end of our strength, there is a heavenly strength, a divine strength. And when we come to an end, we can begin following Jesus sometimes. And that's what the valley does on occasion. It brings us to the end of ourselves. You can go through trials and sufferings and pain and still have joy and contentment, not because you have so much square footage or a nice car or things are going great, but because God can provide you with the strength that you need to get through this valley. You don't need less trials. You need more Jesus. And so that's what we can do if you're feeling in a valley today. Some of you need to lean into that, to just admit, I don't have what it takes. I need God to be God in my life. I feel like I have nothing else, and so I'm going to grab hold of Jesus because I need his presence and his joy and the strength it brings. So we need him daily, but that's not it. If you find yourself in a valley today, if you feel like you're abandoned, you're cut off, and you're alone, here's the next piece of advice from the Bible: to understand the valley is not the destination. That the valley is not the destination. Winston Churchill once famously said, if you're going through hell, by all means, keep going. Sometimes I have this habit of when things are going bad to sit down and sulk. Anybody else? Why me? God, why did this happen to me? What's the thing? What have I done wrong, God? How do I get you back? Sometimes we just want to sit down and mope, and God's like, why are you sitting? You're just going to be here longer. The valley is not the destination, but sometimes to appreciate the light, you have to go through some of the darkness. The lie we believe sometimes is that if things are rough or bad or hard or we're going through a valley, is that sometimes we're not in the will of God or something has happened. Sometimes it's because we made a bad decision. Sometimes it's because we live on a fallen planet where sin kind of still rules and we're just stuck. And even in the middle of God's will, we're still in a valley feeling abandoned. Don't stop. Keep moving. Keep following Jesus. The thing is, following Jesus takes walking, not sitting in the valley and hoping somebody comes to rescue us, to just keep moving, keep following us. We will struggle. We will face opposition. We will face loss in this life, hatred and evil in this world. Jesus experienced all that and defeated it. And so we have to keep moving. You may walk through a valley, but with God leading your path, you'll emerge on the other side more like Jesus, better at living and loving like Jesus. Walking with Jesus means keep moving. Don't stop. Keep following Jesus right out of the valley, right out of that feeling of being cut off, right into his next step for you. And so here's the last thing to understand. When you feel forsaken, you are mistaken. I felt really good about that one. That was like a 4 a.m. thing where I'm staring at the screen. I'm like, wow, that's like a Stephen Furtick thing. And I looked it up. He didn't say that, so I'm going to take credit for it. When you feel forsaken, you are mistaken. Difficulty forces us from this false perspective that we're in control. It forces us from This idea that we're the masters of our own destiny, that we are enough. Suffering doesn't ask if you're ready. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't ask for convenience. It's usually at the worst time in life that things pile on. But there is a God who has not abandoned you, who has not abandoned his people, who has not abandoned his throne, who has not walked away. As we continue through Kings, we'll see it's the entire story of a God who's very much in control, who even uses difficulties and enemies of Israel and drought and famine and hardship to remind his people that he is in fact in control. Ultimately, Kings is about people falling short and the grace of God who says, I'm not done with you yet, no matter how bad it looks. And that is really our story and the story of Israel, that God is not done with you, that he has not abandoned you,